and I had to grab the best immigration lawyer I've met in my career, Joseph Patrick Murphy. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Marty.
There's no way in hell ICE has slowed down at all. And in fact, according to the guys that I know with ICE, they've stepped up their proceedings, including this big-time raid they conducted in Zone 3 in Pittsburgh today. So they are active, are they not, sir?
Yep, I came back in this morning and I got 3 new leads. So one of them's got a gun case. So yeah, they're definitely arresting people. So the thought that they might have calmed down, that's not true.
Okay, and so a couple more things.
Yep.
This raid this morning, they informed Pittsburgh that they would be there, which is cool. They informed their command staff. Pittsburgh cops did not help them, but they were nearby in case they got in some big brouhaha. That's okay, isn't it?
I like that.
Right?
I like that. Coordination, absolutely.
Right? And that's the way it works best, isn't it?
Well, that's the way it historically worked. You know, if you're going to be running operations in somebody else's jurisdiction, you ought to let them know. We had that situation, I think you covered it, where somebody was arrested by ICE. There was an unmarked, I think it was a white van.
Yep.
And people in the neighborhood reported it as a kidnapping.
They did.
And our local police had to follow this van all the way down. And I think by the time it got close to the ICE office in the South Side, they figured out what was going on. But that's a waste of law enforcement resources. Those officers chasing that thing down as a kidnapping weren't doing their job. They thought they were doing their job, but they weren't available in that jurisdiction to fight crime there. And obviously, if they hadn't figured it out sooner, they may have taken steps to try and stop that van. Those things that they put nails on the street. Yep. They could have tried to pull it over. They could have tried to fishtail, any of those things that people do. If you think someone's being kidnapped, police have a lot of obligations there, especially if they've got the kidnapper's vehicle in sight. So the risk of catastrophe, if you don't exchange information, at a minimum, you risk a catastrophe. The other problem is when mom and dad are fighting, that's when the kids really start misbehaving.
Right on.
If you've got 2 people and they can't agree, then they're not governing. This is why every organization in the world has an odd number in its executive body, usually 1, but sometimes you'll see a judicial panel. They always have odd numbers because when there's an even number, they can deadlock and then they're ineffective. And that's what you see too. When the local cops aren't helping ICE, that encourages more people to fight with ICE. It's
well,
it's
hold
tough.
on. That brings up this morning. This is actually why I love you. So my sources tell me that ICE gets there. They arrest 6 people with warrants. Some of them criminal arrests. Some of them they're just going to deport them. But it was a major deal. It was in a parking lot in Zone 3 here in Pittsburgh. Immediately, people came running out of their houses with cell phones, beeping, blowing whistles. Immediately, people jumped out of their cars, beeping, screaming, blowing whistles. What is that? What is that?
People copy what they see on social media.
Right.
It's an outdated term, but people copy what they see. That's how we learned to speak English. Other people around us are speaking English. They see these things on TV. Some of them have been trained to do this in schools and universities. There's little workshops and things you see being organized around town. They feel like they have to do something. This town is not really the most Trump-friendly place on planet Earth, so there's a lot more of this sort of training and resistance and stuff going on than might be going on in a more conservative jurisdiction.
Great point. Here's the thing I wanted to mention, because you knew this case we were talking about with the employee at Oakmont Bakery. And he self-deported. I actually think he didn't even do it until late this weekend, maybe even Monday morning, back to Nicaragua.
Okay.
They gave him $12,000 in plane tickets. Is that usually the case?
Well, who's they, Marty? I don't know.
Federal government.
You're talking about.
For self-deporting.
No, self-deportation shouldn't be that well. I mean, maybe there's reasons for it. I don't know, but normally, no. They'll spend money if they're doing an individualized deportation of a family. They'll usually send some contractors on the plane with them to make sure they get through connections and things, language barrier to help them with that. They're not actually ICE agents, but there's people that are contracted that understand how to do that, and they fly around with these detainees.
But I want to get to this case, and you made an excellent point, and I told Mark Serrero this because people were kind of bitter, disappointed that this man took the money raised for his defense and went back to Nicaragua. You say he probably made a good choice, didn't you?
I do. if I was his lawyer, I would have done a little bit differently than just leaving. I would have applied to the court. There's a mechanism. It's called voluntary departure. People could actually be hauled in front of an immigration judge and just say, look, judge, I made a mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd just like to go home. And if you take that, and if they'll let you do it, you don't get the black mark of a deportation order. If this guy left, eventually that case is going to come up and they're going to deport him and his whole family in absentia, and then they're going to have that black mark on their immigration record. Very difficult to get back in after that, similar to a felony in criminal law. If you take a voluntary departure, you take a 10-year ban, but you don't take that black mark of a deportation order. So I would have done that differently. But at the end of the day, this guy was probably not going to be able to make it on an asylum claim. These are, it's very, very difficult to win those now. I was arguing one up in Newark yesterday, arguing one at an asylum office. And they're tough. They're very, very tough on this. Perceived abuses of the asylum system in the past have got them to a point where they're like really being very, very difficult on even really strong claims. I mean, this lady was a member of a foreign opposition party, but not just a member. She was like a paid official of this opposition party, and was visiting the home country. And a friend of hers that worked basically the equivalent of the state police said, look, in my role as a dispatcher, these guys have a hit list of what they called agitators, and you're on it. And so's your friend Susie and your friend Mary. And Our Lady didn't think much of it. There was always a little bit of this with the ruling party there, until one of the other people on the list, they burned her house down with her inside it.
Whoa.
So Our Lady ran. She had a diplomatic visa because she was a government official herself. And she got on a jet airliner and flew up to good old JFK and filed for political asylum. But even a case that's pretty much that obviously political. I mean, we had her party ID card. We had a letter of when she was hired and how much money she was being paid. And then, of course, the news reports and things of this nature. Even that case, they gave us a pretty hard time about it. Kept me there all day. So it's not as easy as people think. In the past, it was a lot easier because they could take your word for a lot of things. They don't do that anymore. Anything you want to talk about in those asylum trials, you have to have documentary proof or a very, very good explanation of why not. If you say you were in the hospital, you got to have hospital records. If you say you were arrested and had to bail yourself out, you got to have arrest and bail records. They're
so
not
in Jose's case, brother, you probably made the right decision.
For the vast majority of people.
Joseph Patrick Murphy, six arrested this morning. 6 arrested by ICE. Mobs of people beeping their horns, blowing whistles, screaming and yelling.
Looks like 3 of them are going to be in here later today. Got some good news for you about our friend Luis.
What happened?
Judge ordered within 7 days of this order must receive bond hearing conducted by an immigration judge. If does not receive hearing, shall immediately release petitioner from custody. So 7 days is Friday. How do you like that?
And the folks from this raid this morning you're seeing, what were they arrested? What were they picked up for?
I don't have. I mean, we don't normally say, like, what are you picked up for? You do that with a criminal defendant. Ours are being picked up because they're in the country unlawfully. That's always what they're picked up for. What we have is what potential defenses we have. One of these is married to a citizen. One of them was abused by a citizen.
Okay, but before you go, regarding Luis, we've been taking up his fight for a month now, so he might have a shot, sir.
He does. It's getting better here. If we can get him out, the odds get really, really strong that this kid will get the time he needs, those 49 days, and then we'll just file for a green card. So that's very, very good news. Getting him out of there will change the processing timeline significantly, and because it goes slower when they're not detained. The government doesn't have to pay to feed them.
Joseph Patrick Murphy, the best there is. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Marty. Nice seeing you.
The power.